Hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Hill, and it's a pleasure to be with you today for this seminar. In this session, I'll introduce you to grounded theory, one of the 5 core qualitative methodologies. Grounded theory was originally developed in the 1960s by sociologists Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss. They wanted a systematic way to build new theories from the ground up based on real world data rather than testing existing theories. Since then, it has become one of the most widely used qualitative methodologies, particularly for studying social processes and human behavior. By the end of today's session, you should have a clear understanding of its history, its major features, and how you might apply grounded theory to your own research. To provide a bit more context, grounded theory was first introduced in The Discovery of Grounded Theory by Glaser and Strauss in 1967. Their work emerged from sociology, where they were studying processes around dying in hospitals. What made their approach distinctive was its inductive nature. Instead of starting with a hypothesis, they allowed theories to emerge from careful analysis of the data itself. Over time, 2 main strands developed: Glaser's more objectivist approach and Charmaz's constructivist approach, which acknowledges the researcher's role in shaping interpretation. Despite these variations, all versions of grounded theory share the same core aim: to systematically generate theory that is firmly rooted in empirical data. The timeline that you'll see at the bottom of this slide. From 1967, you have the origin. Glaser and Strauss published The Discovery of Grounded Theory. It establishes inductive, data driven approach. The 70s to the 80s, you have expansion. Strauss and Corbin refine systematic coding procedures, open, axial, selective. Ground theory gains traction in sociology and nursing research. The 90s, methodological debates. Glaser emphasizes objectivist grounding theory, which emerges from data. Strauss and Corbin emphasize more structured coding. Early criticisms about rigidity versus flexibility. The 2000s, the constructivists turn. Kathy Charmaz develops constructivist grounded theory, which acknowledges researchers' role in interpretation. Grounded theory applied widely in education, health, and organizational research. In the 2010s, widespread application used globally across social sciences, leadership, and applied research. A strong focus on iterative cycles and methodological rigor. Today, the 2020s to 2025, grounded theory is integrated with digital tools like qualitative software like InVivo or Atlas TI. Applied in emerging fields, AI, online learning, rural educational leadership, and then recognized for its adaptability and continued relevance. Grounded theory has several defining features. First, it is inductive, meaning that theory is built upward from the data rather than imposed from pre existing frameworks. Second, researchers use the constant comparative method, continually comparing new data with previously collected data to refine categories and concepts. Essential part of the method is coding. Researchers begin with open coding to identify broad patterns, move to axial coding to connect categories, and conclude with selective coding that identifies a core category or central phenomenon. Another distinctive feature is theoretical sampling. Rather than deciding all participants in advance, researchers make sampling decisions based on what the emerging theory requires, seeking cases that will expand or challenge developing categories. Overall, grounded theory is an iterative process. Data collection and analysis occur simultaneously in repeated cycles. One way to think about this process is to imagine assembling a puzzle without having the picture on the box. You begin with scattered pieces, the raw data. As you sort and connect them, patterns start to emerge. Each new piece you place helps refine the overall picture, and eventually a coherent image or theory comes into focus. Grounded theory offers several notable strengths as a qualitative methodology. First, it is uniquely positioned to produce new theoretical insights that are firmly grounded in real world data. Second, it is a flexible method. Data collection and analysis can adapt as new patterns emerge. Third, the process is systematic and rigorous, which enhances the credibility and trustworthiness of findings. Finally, grounded theory is particularly effective in examining complex social processes that are difficult to capture through surveys or experiments. In the context of education and leadership research, these strengths are especially valuable. For example, grounded theory allows us to study how leaders make decisions in dynamic school environments, to capture the lived experiences of teachers and students, and to uncover the processes behind policy implementation or cultural change in schools. A metaphor here is that grounded theory functions almost like a listening tool. It amplifies the voices of participants and translates them into conceptual models that can guide practice and policy. In leadership research, this is particularly powerful because it helps us move beyond assumptions and instead build frameworks directly from the realities of those we lead. Grounded theory is particularly appropriate in the study of transformative leadership because it enables researchers to examine processes of change as they unfold in real world contexts. Unlike methods that begin with a predetermined theory, grounded theory allows new insights to emerge directly from the lived experiences of teachers, students, and community members. As a superintendent at Abernathy ISD, a rural district in Texas, I see daily how leadership is shaped by unique cultural, financial, and community dynamics. Grounded theory provides a way to capture those experiences in a systematic manner and build theory that speaks to rural realities, rather than relying solely on frameworks developed in large urban contexts. For example, it can help us understand how rural schools retain teachers despite limited resources, how leaders build trust in close knit communities, or how districts navigate the implementation of new state mandates. In this way, grounded theory becomes not only a scholarly tool, but also a practical one, generating theories that can inform better decision making and drive meaningful change in education. To make this concrete, here are some sample research questions that grounded theory could help address within the context of my own doctoral research. For example, how do rural superintendents describe their role in shaping communication with school boards? What processes do superintendents use to foster storytelling between school boards, staff, and the community? In what ways do school boards in rural settings engage in or resist collaborative storytelling practices? And how do narratives constructed by school leaders influence board decision making in rural schools? Each of these questions is focused on processes and interactions rather than on testing a prior hypothesis. Grounded theory would allow me to collect rich data through interviews and observations, compare responses across participants, and ultimately develop a theory about how storytelling functions as a leadership tool in rural school governance. Let me give you a concrete example of how grounded theory has been applied in educational leadership research. In 2023, Hartney, Axe, and Barkowski conducted a study in a Canadian school district to explore how generative dialogue could support leadership development for principals and vice principals. Using grounded theory, the researchers analyzed data collected through dialogue based interviews. Three major themes emerged: environment, relationships, and leadership. These were not predetermined categories. They emerged through the constant comparative method and repetitive coding. The study's grounded theory suggested that generative dialogue fostered professional growth when leaders engaged in self reflection, safe and honest conversations, and supportive supervision. The outcomes included stronger professional accountability, improved school culture, and enhanced leadership capacity. What is significant here is that grounded theory enabled the researchers to move beyond descriptive accounts, developing a conceptual framework that can inform future leadership development programs. This illustrates the power of grounded theory in generating new insights directly from leaders' lived experiences. To illustrate how I might apply grounded theory in my own doctoral research, consider my focus on school board relations in rural schools, specifically the superintendent's role in communication and storytelling between the board and staff. In this study, I would interview superintendents, board members, and staff across several rural Texas districts. In addition, I would observe board meetings and analyze documents such as agendas, newsletters, and district communications. Using grounded theory, I would begin with open coding to identify recurring themes in the data. Through axial coding, I would connect these categories, for instance, linking how superintendents craft narratives with how boards respond to or adopt those narratives. Finally, selective coding would allow me to identify a central category, such as storytelling as a leadership process. The ultimate goal would be to generate a theory that explains how storytelling functions as a tool of communication and governance in rural school districts. This theory could not only inform practice, but also provide future researchers and leaders with a framework for strengthening superintendent board relations in similar contexts. And you'll see at the bottom of the slide here, the superintendent and the board to the storytelling of the staff. That little visual is a good representation of what this could look like in my doctoral research. To conclude, let's recap the key takeaways about grounded theory. It originated in sociology with Glaser and Strauss, and its purpose is to generate theory that is firmly rooted in data. Its defining features include systematic coding, the constant comparative method, and theoretical sampling. Grounded theory offers significant strengths. It is flexible, rigorous, and particularly effective in uncovering complex social processes. As we saw, it has been applied successfully in leadership studies and in my own work. It provides a way to explore how storytelling functions as a tool of leadership in rural school board relations. As you move forward in your own research journeys, I encourage you to see grounded theory as a methodology that empowers you to let the data speak and to allow new theory to emerge from the voices of your participants. It is not only a tool for understanding, it is also a pathway for innovation and research. Let the data speak and let new theory emerge.